Okay, in this little video what we're going to do is actually show how we're going to lock this last little bit of thread in place so it actually never comes undone. And for that we'll need the awl. Now the awl is really sharp and it will stab you as easily or more easily than it will actually stab the leather, so be really careful with this and be careful where you're pushing. If we take the last thread will come across, what we want it to do is go into that hole but come out on the underside of this cross here, so it actually hides the hole that we're going to make. So with the awl, push it into that cross section of the last one and start pushing it through to this hole here. Okay, just pivot it, and as soon as you see the needle there, okay, tilt it back so we cause as little damage to the front of the sheath as we can. Okay, and that pushes through. That makes us a nice little hole so that the needle can come up in the middle here. Now it will be a little bit tight, so we're going to possibly use the pliers. You don't need the pliers, but you'd have to work a little bit harder to make the hole slightly bigger. Again, never actually pull it through like this or you'll snap the eye of the needle. Pull it through on its long axis like that and then pull it through tight. So align it and then pull it through tight, and that's our first lock. Now from there, the hole that we made here going through to this one, we're going to follow the same hole, but we're going to push it through on the back side of the sheath now so that it comes through on the next hole up. Okay, and then take the needle, pop it through, and it doesn't really matter if the awl pushes through any thread that's in the hole. It doesn't really matter. In fact, it probably helps lock it into place. Again, pull through and then pull it tight, and that's our first lock one in place. When we come to actually finish it, what we can do is just push this cross up a little bit, and that will sort of hide the hole that we've made. Now what we do is come up to the next cross and tuck it underneath and then jiggle it through until we can push a hole through the hole where the thread is already coming out. Push the needle through and then pull it through that hole. Pull it tight. Now, as we're pulling it tight, we're also pulling it tight on that hole there, which will push any thread that's above the surface. It will just pull it down below the surface of the leather. So from the hole that we made for this cross, come up to the next hole and poke it through. All right, and you can see we've got to tilt it back so we cause as little damage to that hole as we can. And the needle, poke it through there. Pull it along the axis until we've pulled it through. Oops, don't worry about that. That's just a rubber glove. Oh, let's get it out of the way. That's nice and stuck then. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do, oh, that's pulled it through, is I'll pause it just for a second, sort this problem out and come back to you in a second. Okay, so glove crisis averted, and we'll just pull that, and again pull it tight. As you can see, it's just slightly above the surface of the leather there, but if we pull it tight we can actually pull it below the surface, and then if we adjust that cross stitch over the hole, you won't really see it. So again, we come up to the next hole up and go underneath the cross, and being very careful not to stab ourselves, push it through into that hole there. Okay, like that. Pull it back and then poke the needle through. Okay, if it's a bit tight, pull the needle along its axis to pull it through. We won't break the needle then. Pull it nice and tight. Now we'll go finish it now. When finishing the lock stitch, what we do is go through the hole that we made and then push it through the very last hole on the back side. A little bit difficult because we're having to go through some threads as well, so just twist it through like that, and then poke the needle through, pull it through, and then pull it nice and tight. So that's actually finished. What we could do now is cut the thread, and if we cut the thread about 4 mil or so, 5 mil from the actual hole itself, we've got a nice piece of thread. If we use the lighter at that point, we can actually just melt it in place, and that will be permanent. So just melt it down. Whilst it's still molten, use the side of the lighter just to press it down, and that finishes it. So what we do now is we can just, with the awl, adjust these cross threads so we're actually hiding these holes that we made. Oops. Yeah, being careful not to damage the front like I just did. Oh, that should be all right. Okay, and then basically the sheath is fully stitched.